Now, we also have the ability to show much more information about each database, and what we call the application advisor. What the application advisor does, and again, this is a very short presentation, is it highlights in red the items that we know are going to present a challenge when migrating to Force, either because there's a lot of code, either because of special security features in it, either because there's some independent risks or complexities, such as integration or email integration. We can also show which user is using what. The goal here is that you have this screen sitting next to the screen that you are using to do the migration. And before you embark upon migrating an application, you're not running into surprises. You actually see the thing that could be a problem, the thing that may need a workaround, or the thing that could be ignored. But at least you're not, you don't discover that halfway through the project. That makes the estimation and the schedule a lot easier for those applications. So the point I'm making here is we're definitely not talking about a one-to-one migration. We're talking probably more like a combination of number 2 and number 3. Number 2 is where a multitude of nodes databases designs are similar enough to be moved into a single application. That makes the cost of migration significantly lower because well, if there's 20 departments using really pretty much the same project management application, then you can pool those resources together in building a brand new great Force application on the other side. The third one is trickier, and that's where I think you want to leverage the expertise of a system integrator, where Blue Wave can come in and say, look, guys, I've seen the same purchase order form in various formats occurring in 50 nodes databases. You know, we could certainly recreate a whole bunch of purchase order forms on the Salesforce system, but does that really make sense? Wouldn't it make more sense to actually find a way to do one purchase order custom object with a few variation within that could serve the entire organization? Would it make more sense to break up that nodes database into what looks like standard object? A product, there's a standard object called product in Force. There's a, as part of the CRM, there's a set of standard object for the Service Cloud, for instance. Or perhaps there's an application that exists out there that really is already a long way towards what you want to do. For instance, if you're going to do an expense report, how many expense reports were built in Notes? It's mind-boggling here, custom built. There's 2 or 3 companies selling expense reports as part of the App Exchange. Well, in this case, the recommendation probably, well, you just license one of the existing expense report and then have Blue Wave map the various flavors of custom-built expense report in Notes to those to this App Exchange app, and then help you move the data that you want to preserve into it. So the combination of the second and the third is where you really get a lot of leverage from stepping back for a minute, thinking about this, and trying to figure out a way that you're rebuilding an infrastructure and a set of applications that makes a lot more sense. So best practices, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. The point being is you want to define a first phase that is manageable, that can be done in a reasonable amount of time, and that has the best return on your investment, whether it's the focus on eliminating those clients, terminal servers, specific departments, integrating marketing functions into sales, whatever it is. This is where a bit of consulting makes a lot of sense to define this first phase. So let's talk about migration. Just a few minutes. What I feel is when I talked about the spirit behind Lotus Notes. To me, the spirit behind Lotus Notes is that the users could actually do quite a bit of the work of putting an application together, or enhancing or modifying an application. Quite a bit of that work could be left to the users. That was the intent of Notes, and I think it stayed that way for many years, and eventually starting deviating with the WebSphere, DB2, Xpages, and all those technology which are beyond most users. The The point is that the clicks that were shown in that demonstration that Harry has talked about, to me the clicks in force are the same thing as the features that originally were put in Lotus Notes, where it is left upon the users to take some of the burden that IT just doesn't have the capacity to take on. And the way to show that is perhaps in the migration component of EscapeNotes. So what you see on the left is a notes application, and actually I could probably show you that. So on the left is so there's no smoking mirrors. This is a classic notes application. And you see here it has tables, it has various kind of data types. It's got a lot of rich text. Lotus Notes was used by many organizations as a poor man's word processor. Some of them embed images, also a poor man's file system, bunch of file attachments. So classic, this one has hundreds of fields in there. So when we migrate this to Force using EscapeNotes, this is what you get. So, a couple, glitches obviously on the UI, but you have your sections, you have your fields, you same data type, you respected the rich text and the tables and the colors and the fonts. If there were a file attachment would have been respected as well. So, so what happened? What happened here? So what happened is we were capable of mapping the object model of Lotus Notes in terms of forms and subforms into custom objects, plural, and custom fields. We were able to recreate the UI by creating Visual Force pages, so you have the same look and feel as in Notes. That's an option. You don't have to recreate the same UI, but probably originally with the new, users being transitioned from Notes to Force, you kind of want to make sure they don't get too lost. We are capable as well of recreating the workspace, and the workspace is in the form of something that looks just like the Lotus Notes workspace, where you have a bunch of icons and tabs and things like this. On the data side, we preserve 100% of the data, and that's in the form of file attachment that go to Salesforce, S3, Google Doc, FTP, WebDAV, wherever you want them. The fields, as we talked about, we are capable of provisioning users, as I mentioned before. We can respect profiles if you know what those things are, doc links, as well as a response hierarchy. So what do you have? What you have is you have some of the steps which are automated, some are not. And that's where it's very important here to be very honest about it. The schema is preserved. All the data, 100% of the data is preserved, and that's hard work. We migrate the look and feel of the notes form. We are capable of doing pseudocode. That's the ability of kind of showing things that we know doesn't work in Force, in context. And we're capable of provisioning groups and users. This is the very time-intensive processes. This is where you really don't get a lot of value, because at the end you pretty much get the same thing on the other side. What is not done is dashboard and reporting. The workflow. We see the code, we just don't know what the code does. Recreating the security. We could recreate a security. It probably doesn't make sense, because it's a time when one wants to really reconsider how the security is set up in Notes and reestablish in Force.